620 KHTS.
Hey, welcome to the show, the Total Financial Hour. I'm Arif Hallaby with Logan Hallaby, talking about your family's finances, getting out of debt, managing money, planning for your retirement, your future, what it's all about. How do you get to the place with really when you're bombarded with information? You know, you can look everywhere all the time and try to figure out why it's so fascinating that the knowledge, the information, the ideas that exist are always being filtered through somebody's personal opinion. I mean, you understand that, right? If I tell you that the Dodgers are better than the Giants, it's because I like the Dodgers. Simple, right? If you tell me the Cardinals are better than, or who's going to win the Super Bowl, right? I mean, you get the idea? And that goes all the way through to if you work for company X versus their competitor company Y. Always understand you're going to get a filtered, and that's not any different. It isn't any different from me or anybody else. So then how do you know what's the appropriate information? Well, today you're blessed to be in a place where you just get, I think, overwhelmed with information on retirement, what it's like to retire. When do you want to retire? What does that look like? You know, you have one guy that goes on TV, and I would die before I sell an annuity to my mother or something. I don't know what he says. Well, okay, that's because they don't charge fees and can't make a profit on it, right? If he could do TV commercials and not have to charge a fee, all right, fine. Somebody's supporting him. Somebody's, giving him the finances. What about us? Listen, we're in the financial business just like anybody else that might do a financial show, unless they're being paid by advertisers. So I need you to understand that when we give you advice or information, it's with the idea and the concept of, 21 years of experience. We just hit 15 years on the radio a few days ago. So 15 years of radio experience, thousands of radio shows, hundreds of articles that we've written for different magazines, published in a variety of places. But it all comes down to one thing. I have my own biases, just like you do. Why do you drive a Ford or a Chevy or a Honda versus a Toyota? You have your own biases. So always remember that. You're going to come at this with a grain of salt. I'm going to give you my experiences. That's all I can give you. And my experiences in dealing with thousands of people over the years, literally thousands, you could do the math. So what is the difference when I tell you, here are things that certain clients have done that work for them, through my perspective, my point of view, through their personal experiences? You get it? I almost feel like I have to talk to a kindergarten class here sometimes, because a lot of folks will say, "Oh my gosh, you think this is better than that." Yes, I do. I don't care who you are. If you like Italian food or Chinese food, you will think one of them is better than the other when I ask you, where should I go out to dinner tonight? You got it? So there's no difference. Even if you bill yourself as a food critic. All right, fair enough? Here's the topic today. How are you going to practice for retirement? And should you practice for retirement? And what does that look like? Because when I say practicing for retirement, here's my biases. I see people that succeed in retirement, and I'm going to give you my definition of success. People that I see that succeed at retirement do so because they have less worries, more friends, and more purpose. Now, I don't care if they have 2 friends. It's still better than 0. It doesn't matter to me. And I'm part of that group that says, if you die and you had people go up in front of a room full of 2,000 people, and they say, Arif never met a stranger. And when he died, everybody liked him. If you ever hear that about me, number one, don't believe a thing that person's saying, because there are people that don't like us. But more importantly, it means that person never stood for anything. You have to expect to have some people dislike you or what you believe. Otherwise, you don't stand for anything. What do you mean? What's your purpose? What matters to you? We don't have to be disagreeable, but we can disagree. We don't have to be angry, but we can understand that there are different things. So when I say have a purpose in retirement, I don't mean run around being a grumpy old man or a grumpy old woman. I mean, go to a place where people want you, like you, expect you to show up. right? That's different. Logan, we've talked about this. You've seen your grandparents on both sides. You're blessed to have both grandparents still alive. When I was your age, I couldn't say that. And grandparents on both sides are busy. They have something that they're doing somewhere, sometime.
They are almost busier than they were before they retired.
And that gives them a purpose. If your job is to wake up in the morning to see, do I have a hair appointment today or a doctor's appointment? Do I stop by the pharmacy to pick up my stuff, or do I have to go shopping for the cat? If that's everything, if that's your financial life, folks, then I think you have a problem. The problem is you don't have a purpose in your life. There's nobody expecting you to show up. So how do you practice for retirement? I think number one is you have to have a place and a purpose. So where does that come from? Well, it comes from a chance and an opportunity for you to live a life where you grow and you're always learning something new. Look at how many folks, the studies today, right? They do Alzheimer's studies and they'll go through and they'll say, well, let me tell you, with an Alzheimer's patient, if their mind is always active, if they're always learning something, now you're in a position to grow.
And it helps, in many cases, reduce the effects of some degenerative diseases on the mind or the body if you stay active. Just like anything else, the mind is a muscle, and if you let it wither away, it's going to.
Yeah, and a lot of people today, with reading books and watching movies and learning, I used to have 3 channels, just like many of you, 3 or 4 channels. We lived kind of up against a mountain in Sylmar, so we didn't get a lot of the regular channels. I think we had maybe 3 or 4 channels. We never got Big Bird, what is that, Sesame Street. Never. I didn't know that even existed until I was probably in mid-teens or something. We just never heard of it in our neighborhood because nobody had that kind of television. But later on in life, you flip on the TV and what do you want to learn? You want to learn about World War II? You can learn about World War II. You want to learn how to speak Chinese, or what's the British perspective on South American politics? My gosh, you can find it, right? And if you can't find it on regular cable TV, you can certainly find it on the internet or on YouTube, Netflix, whatever it might be. So consider this. You have to stay active. You have to be somebody who has a life that has people counting on you. So when you practice for retirement, if 100% of your social value outside of your spouse, maybe your kids, one lives in Seattle, one lives in Denver, and you think, gosh, I'm going to see them the next holiday, and you live from holiday to holiday, doctor's appointment to doctor's appointment, filling in that gap means everything. And if you don't, then I don't think you should retire, because your social network, the group of people that count on you with deadlines and a purpose and, hey, are you sick today? How you doing today? What's going on today? Those people aren't going to be there when you retire by definition.
If your social life comes from your work or what you do for a living, basically, because you see those people 4 or 5 days a week, more.
Yeah.
And then they're just, suddenly you retire, happy party, and then you're gone. Now what?
Yeah, gold watch at a party, folks, and that's it. You're forgotten. I can tell you one of the things that I've seen is that when folks leave Friday and they do something on that Monday. Now, I don't mind. Take a week, a month off, whatever it is. I'm going to give you a list of things that I want you to do. I think that practicing for retirement, we'll see if you're ready for it or not. Because financially you might be. And that's going to be my first point, which is the worries. Part of the worries is the social part, but it's also financial. You have to say, what is my budget? What do I need to live on each month? And understand that between now and the day you pass away, you may have different sources of income come and go. You might inherit money. You might have Social Security. Maybe you're retiring at age 60, and you're not going to turn on Social Security until age 66 or age 70. Well, that's fine. You got to fill the gap. Maybe you fill that gap with part-time work. So there's less financial pressure on your retirement accounts. So you can take greater risk or have a greater sense of the income's going to be there when you need it in 4 or 5 years because you're working part-time. So have your accounts become something where you're taking the pieces and you're separating them out into buckets. And be very careful when your objective is to sit in a room and wait to die, right? I know that's horrible, but there's a place where people need you. You didn't live your entire life with the skill set so that you can shut off the switch and then sit around for 10 or 12 or 15 years.
A lot of people take something that they're good at and then, or they like, start volunteering. If you like animals, find an animal shelter or pet rescue or something like that. A couple days a week, play with some cute animals, help out the community, exercise. Something like that is a great way to stay active and feel needed.
Yeah, and consider your hobbies. Your hobbies can take you to places. There was a gentleman that I met who was a firefighter. And obviously, as you know, firefighters most of the time have lots of time on their hands. So he picked up the trade of woodworking. And then he started making these little trucks, wheels and wooden trucks for kids, that were sick, for kids that were, had less financial means. Their parents did, so during the holidays. And so this man would make these gifts, and then they caught on. And then he taught other people how to make them, so other retirees. Some of them would work a little, some a lot. So he retired as a firefighter. He had a great pension. Most firefighters have really good pensions. So he had a great pension, but he didn't have anything to do until he started doing this. And one truck turned into two, turned into a little car, made a motorcycle, little. And before you knew it, he became a mini toy manufacturer, never sold a thing, gave it away. People donated the wood to him so he could continue to make it for children that were ill or just kids that that came through the nonprofit that he worked through. Those are times where you create something that leaves this earth much longer and stays much longer than you do. Right? You're gone. The truck, the toys, the joys, the memory, the special feeling. Right? You understand the special feeling when a young child receives a toy? My mother-in-law quilts. She makes quilts for kids that are sick in the hospital. And she gets together 1 or 2 days a week with her quilting club. And of course they talk about whatever they're talking about. And they put together quilts. They're prayer quilts. They make them for the kids. And of course they made them for all their grandkids. But she makes them for young kids in the family. But more importantly for kids at the hospital. And when they take a group of these with the little babies that are born, some of them premature, some of them just kids that are born in the hospital, and it's a little gift from these ladies, there's a special joy and purpose that comes from that. Now you might say, Arif, I'm 60 years old. I ran a triathlon just 3 years ago. I ride my bike. What do I do? The next thing I need you to start practicing for is understanding that you're going to have a lifetime of Saturdays. But there is a time when you're going to be the youngest and the healthiest you've ever been, and that's now. I say it's your first 10 years in retirement. There's different numbers out there, but usually your first 8 or 10 years into retirement, that's the active time. That's when your purpose is important, but also your activities, because that's the youngest and healthiest you're ever going to be. So don't forget to go out, to take those trips. If it's Europe or driving an RV across America, I don't know. If it's the first time you studied certain places in college and you've never been able to go, or you wanted to walk Machu Picchu, you understand that that's a difficult climb. You better do it while you're young. There's no wheelchair ramps and ADA accessibilities to the Great Pyramids, to the top of the pyramid, So there's purposes that come through and things to look forward to that come from traveling and trips.
And then later on, retirement years, those kinds of vacations become limited to cruise ships, to cities, places that maybe they have elevators, ramps, those kind of things.
Yeah, less accessible.
Get the stuff done that's a little harder. Do it sooner.
And I'm an advocate for that sports car. Getting the sports car when you're younger, when you can still get in and out of the car if it's low to the ground, if you're talking about hips and knees and backs, those kinds of things are important to achieve. If it's your thing. For some of you, you couldn't care less. Others wanted a motorcycle. Some of you consider those items, because this is a very important part of retirement, is achieving the goals. Now you might say, Arif, you're normally the guy that says save money, don't spend it foolishly. Yes. And you did that. And it's over in the sense that I still don't want to spend foolishly, but it's over. You've served other people. You've made the company do what it's going to do. You've raised your children, your spouse, grandchildren. Maybe you've lost somebody close to you, a family member, a brother or sister, a parent. It's time to live your life. I understand saving. Make sure you're saving properly. I get it. Of course, that's what we do. But don't forget to live. Because along this journey, you're going to reach an age when you're saying, okay, that's it, I'm ready. And you can't walk more than 100 yards without stopping to take a breath. Okay, these are important parts.
And there's a difference between buying that new sports car or vacation or the dream item when you're comfortably retired, or if buying that sports car means you're going to be eating ramen for the next year.
Yeah, that's right. It has to financially fit into your life. And if you did the right things, we've written some articles. I've written some great articles called Running the Race, stop running when you've crossed the finish line. Because for a lot of you, financially, you don't understand that you've reached what you need. I met with a client the other day. They're in their 40s. They've saved about $1.5 million. That's really good, right? A lot of you are thinking, well, it's not as great as some. Some are much more than that, and many are not. But just by taking the normal steps that they would take, saving what they normally save, retiring when they plan on retiring, they really don't need that much more risk in their portfolio. They're like, hey, I'm pretty comfortable. If I just get reasonable growth rates as I'm continuing to add, I expect to inherit some money someday. We're going to sell off one of the rental properties. Financially, what their number is that they need to meet to retire, they're already on that road. No reason to take risk. But now if you're 45 and you have $50,000 to your name, and the only way you're going to ever retire is to turn 50 into 500, then taking a greater amount of risk just to turn it into something so that even if it goes to zero, you're exactly in the same spot. And sometimes people say, Arif, I need this $50,000 to grow. I say, folks, look, listen, my job is not to make you rich. Any financial professional who tells you that their job is to make you wealthy is wrong. I don't know, maybe they believe it, but they're just incorrect. Their job is to be a good steward of your money. It's to take care of it. It's to help grow it. It's to protect it. Now, if you go to Vegas and you tell the person behind the counter who's dealing the cards or who's pushing the levers, and you say, hey, here's my paycheck, they don't care. They're going to put it on red or put it on 4, or they're going to do whatever because their job is gambling. So don't think the stockbroker's idea that taking risk is just part of your retirement life. It is not. You might want to play with some of it, fine. But you better have a backup plan so that in case you lose that, or lose half of it at least, you have a plan B. So practicing for retirement also includes a budget. Now, when we come back, I'm going to give you a strategy that allows you to say, we're going to practice for retirement. Now, I like 3 months, right? You're not going to be able to learn anything just in 1 month. I think it's going to take 3 months. For a time for you to sit down, you do the math, you run a budget. We'll get to those issues and those strategies when we come right back. We're also going to get into health insurance and how do you make sure you're right. If you're going to retire at 55 or 60, you've got a gap there before Medicare kicks in at 65. What do you do for those answers as well? And then last but not least, I want to get into what I think is one of the more important parts of your life, which is how do you leave a legacy? We'll do that and a whole lot more. I'm Arif Halaby on Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour. This is the Total Financial Hour on your place for news, talk, and information. Your hometown station, KHTS.
I've been into cars ever since I was 6 years old. I helped my dad build race cars in our driveway.
Dave Reeves, owner of Reeves Complete Auto Center.
I love cars. I've been in automotive service my whole life. I ran my dad's wrecking yard and rear-end shop, managed several auto repairs until I opened my own auto repair facility.
Reeves, on Ruther in Canyon Country.
I learned customer service and honest communication make the difference.
Reeves, your complete auto service center.
Call Reeves at 252-1400.
Genghis Khan Mongolian Barbecue and Chinese Buffet. Healthy vegetables and lean meats. A low-carb treat. Create your own bowls with our delicious meats and always fresh vegetables. Then, blend in your own secret sauce. Feast at the all-you-can-eat buffet and barbecue for the same low price. A local favorite for over 25 years, Genghis Khan is still located on Lyons Avenue just east of the I-5. Enter between the Chevron and Shell gas stations. Come and see us soon at Genghis Khan.
The Santa Clarita Artists Association has a new gallery in downtown Newhall on 6th Street between Main and Railroad, right across from the Canyon Theater Guild. The gallery features our members' paintings, sculptures, and one-of-a-kind handcrafted gift items. Whether you're an art lover, buyer, or an artist wishing to join, visit our website at santaclaritaartist.org, come to our free monthly meetings at Barnes & Noble, or stop by the gallery. For upcoming events and exhibits, check us out at santaclaritaartist.org. We make visual art visible.
KHTS, your hometown station.
This is your place for news, talk, and information, your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.
Hey, welcome back to the show, the Total Financial Hour. I'm Arif Halaby. Thanks for staying with us as we get into the meat and potatoes, the practicing for retirement. How do you get to a place so you can say, can I retire? Even financially, does it make sense? Well, begin with this. I want you to have a practice budget. In other words, what does a budget look like now? And then what does one look like when you are retired? Okay, you're not going to have dry cleaning if you do that now. You probably aren't going to do that as much when you're retired. You're not going to be driving back and forth to work, maybe the lunches, okay? So work through a budget that says, here's about how much I'm going to spend. Make sure you budget for birthdays. Make sure you budget for Christmas presents, those kinds of things, because they pop up every once in a while. And even if your goal is to have your house paid off, you're still going to have property taxes. Those are very, and of course, fire insurance. That matters because when you start to go through the process of, okay, I can live on this monthly budget. It's consistent. Life is good. I get it. Oh, what do you mean April is here? What do you mean February is here? What do you mean I have a property tax bill due twice a year? Or if you say, oh, we want to take that trip. Well, before you would vacation once a year and you knew what that budget was going to be. But now you have time. And if that cruise pops up as a, last minute special, you say, yeah, we have time. We don't have anything to do. And I can tell you a lot of folks take advantage of those things. When you go out, if you have the free time, if you have the flexibility, and you get onto some of these cruise websites where they email you the alerts, hey, we have 4 cabins left at this price. And you can make that, it's less expensive to be on the ship than it is to be at home. Between the food, the electricity, the water bill, the entertainment, the lodging. My gosh, set your little timer at home, the light comes off and on, and they'll pretend like you're there, and you're on a ship for a week or two for $100, $300 a week, right? You can get big discounts. So don't forget to have money for those flexible times in your life. When you budget for that, then we say, let's play pretend. I want you to live on that. You say, I'm going to live on what it's like to retire. So maybe your income drops 30%, 60%. You're not paying union dues. You're not paying payroll tax. You may be at a lower income tax bracket. Those are things that you might check with your CPA and say, where do I fit into that, right? And you ask your CPA, what will it be like if I make this much? What's my take home going to be? That gives you the chance to practice for retirement financially. Okay, what would we do? Well, we're probably going to drive up the coast. Wonderful, drive up the coast. What does that cost? When you build a budget that practices for retirement, there's other options as well. And Logan, there are things that we're going to want to do when we still have a higher income, even if especially if we're going to stay in our home.
Well, and that's thinking about your health. As you mentioned in the last segment, you're healthiest now than you're probably going to be in the future. So look around your house. Are there stairs, narrow doorways? What's going to be in the way if you need to have something a little more accessible?
Yeah, and there may be things like that downstairs bathroom. For a lot of you, you might say, listen, we're going to age in this house. We're going to age in place. We either, for whatever reason, your church, your friends, your family, everybody's here. You don't plan on moving. You don't want a new property tax bill or a payment outside of the state. This is where you're going to settle. All right. But what about making that half bath downstairs into a half bath with a shower or a bathtub or whatever appeals to you? You can do that. Now you have a bedroom downstairs and a bathroom. So if you need to, because of the hips or knees or backs, and you need to stay downstairs, you can age in place. Now, maybe you're healthy enough, but between now and the time you're going to need that downstairs bathroom, you may be taking in your parents or your in-laws.
And what happens if you have a lot of time to get this installed? If you can have a project that you think of now that you can find the best time to do it over the next year versus suddenly they just moved in and you need it done now, which is going to be more expensive from a contractor's perspective.
Yeah, of course. When you have flexibility, freedom, you have the ability to do some of it yourself maybe. But this is all I like to do it pre-retirement so that we know what our fixed costs are going to be. Now, if you say, Arif, I could do it all myself, I just need the time, and retirement's about that, fine, then you better make sure you have the health. But preparing to have that downstairs bathroom, if you're going to age in place, and of course the bedroom, I think is a very important part of it. Now, we have folks that are financially, they're okay, but they want extra income, and they rent out the upstairs. So they lived in the downstairs area. They rent out the upstairs bedroom or the upstairs or the upstairs master bedroom, and they earn $500 or $600 or $800 a month, and they use that to help offset their property tax bill. Now you live for free. There's a little bit of privacy stuff going on as long as you're okay with that. So there are ways to generate extra income when you have the two-story house and you're still thinking, gosh, one-story homes are difficult to find. I like my neighbors. I like my neighborhood. That's an option that you can have.
And all these little things, you probably don't think of it now. Maybe it makes sense to test drive a wheelchair or a walker and just not even use it 24/7, but walk through the house. Will this fit? Is there going to be an issue there? Just kind of thinking of the future and what's kind of going to happen.
Yeah, sometimes between today and the time when you're done working and you're retired, and then the next stretch between you're retired and you're 10 years later, right, when your activity starts to slow down, you may be a caregiver for an older sibling, maybe a caregiver for a special needs child or a sibling that's going to need more attention and more care. That's the time when you start preparing accordingly. We have seen, and you guys can do this, you can go online, take a look at some of the elevators that they're putting in. Logan, we looked at this the other day. It's fascinating. They look like the old hamster tubes. You remember those? Where they're clear and the hamsters would run across and climb up and then spin on a wheel. These tubes are clear. They're clear plexiglass, and they work on various systems. There's cable systems and et cetera, and there's push systems. But they're elevators, and they go in the corner of your house or up against a wall. They can be round, they can be square, and they have various designs, and it takes you right up to the second floor. It's much better than having that chair that goes around, the outside wall, because some of you can't do that because you have different, you have a landing on one side and then the railing goes to the other side as it switches halfway up. So it's difficult to have that, or you just don't want that bulky thing in the way, and you have the space. Consider that. Consider putting a tube in the corner where you can have an elevator system go straight up. It takes about a 5 or 6 foot radius. I'm kind of looking at the pictures, and you can have your own elevator in your house. What's the cost? You might be thinking, oh, it's horrible. It's about $5,000, maybe less. So it's not cheap, but it is not very expensive either. And you can have an elevator system put in your home. You can age in place. You now have a backup system where you can stay upstairs, etc. Much less expensive than paying closing fees and selling your home. Much less expensive than moving and relocating across town. So if you're going to stay in your home, consider that.
And definitely less expensive than having an accident or something on the stairs. Have you seen what an ambulance costs these days?
Yeah, yeah. Consider that, right? We have seen a lot of folks slip and fall, and these things can help eliminate that. Okay, that aside, the next thing I want you to consider when we talk about budget expenses is there's going to be a time frame between when you retire for some and 65 years old when Medicare kicks in. And during that window, you're going to need a period of time of health care to be covering you. Ask around what type of small businesses, right, whether it's coffee shops or retail outlets, maybe you're going to work part-time. Steer that towards a place that has health insurance. You can do that. Now, today with the Obamacare rules in California, it's being all jumbled up in a mess. Who knows where it will be in the next year or two, but overall, you can go online and buy health insurance at a reasonable cost. You don't really get a lot of it. Most of it is basically a catastrophic plan, meaning you're going to cover the first 5 or 10 or 20,000 out of pocket. If you have the money set aside for really significant emergencies, great. If not, consider working another year or two if you have a union health care. Some of you, right, you work till age 55, you get health care. If you're a county employee, you know this. It's ingrained in you when you're 20 years old and you start with the county that you know at age 55 you have health care. For the time being, they can't change that. I think that will change. I think health care costs, they're going to give you a flat, we're going to give you $300 a month. Do whatever you want with it. And I think they're going to get out of the health insurance business simply because it's just too expensive.
And there's other options when it comes to some of the health shares, some of those kinds of things. But maybe your company or employer has an option to, instead of retire flat out 100%, can you step down to a part-time kind of role?
Yeah, what is health share? We've seen those a little bit, the legacy health share, and there's a few others out there.
Those work on the principle of it's more of a cooperative kind of setup between individuals who all band together to share each other's healthcare costs. They're somewhat newer in some ways compared to traditional health insurance, but
Okay.
it's also kind of what people have been doing for centuries, although a little more formal now.
Yeah, consider this. It really goes through the process of saying there's a group of us that are going to be basically self-insured. Because all insurance companies do is they take a little bit from a lot of people to pay a lot of money for a few people. Because nobody knows who's going to be the next one getting sick. If I'm going to be ill or you are. So if we all put money into a pool, you understand there's no difference than FDIC insurance, right? At a bank, every bank, for every dollar that they have on deposit, they put some money in a bucket so that if Bank X goes out of business, those people don't lose their money above or below $250,000. It's the same concept. Everybody's putting in an insurance premium to pay a few people. Now you can find private groups that do it. And under the rules and the laws, they qualify. See, the biggest mistake California did is it pushed when they were in favor of who was in the White House. The progressive, the far left agenda in California said the federal government should say what we can do with health insurance. It's a federal matter. And the Republicans were saying, and the conservatives were and libertarians were saying, well, no, it's not. It's a local matter. It's state. Let each state make their own decision. No, it's a federal matter. So the federal passes Obamacare. All right. Everybody gets it. Starts to ruin the system. Suddenly folks that were going to retire can't afford to retire. Suddenly your $300 health insurance premiums are $1,000. Well, that means you have to take money. Today, the federal government is now saying, fine, we're going to get rid of Obamacare. And now the states are going, no, you can't do that. It's a state thing. So California is trying to say the opposite now. No, it's about the state. Well, we'll see what happens. At the end, you still have to cover insurance between 60 and 65 or whenever you retire. Consider self-funding it. Whether you buy your own insurance through the exchange, whether you go directly to an insurance company. A lot of the rules, a lot of the, putting people in boxes so that you can only buy insurance that looks like this, I think that's going to start going away even more, especially once we get the DACA issue resolved and the wall issue resolved. I think the next thing is going to be infrastructure, and then we're going to be back to healthcare. Hopefully they can get it all done this year, right? President Trump is not somebody who thinks the normal political establishment's pace of doing things is appropriate, so I expect him to make some changes. Okay, why do I bring that up? Because if you have to go back to work at a place that has health insurance, do it. We have folks that were engineers with Northrop and Lockheed, and they now work for the school district as a teacher's aide. Yeah, these were engineers, PhDs. And they do one-on-one with special needs kids because it's always been a passion of theirs. That is admirable. What do they get paid? Nothing compared to what an engineer with tenured experience working on top secret projects, right? That and a teacher's aide, the pay is not the same. Not the impact, right? They change people's lives, both of them. But sometimes the health insurance payment is better. So you say, I'm going to go and work over there. So consider that as part of it. Maybe a union health insurance, so you can do research backwards and look for care and unions that actually have health insurance premiums. Hey, Logan, give me something else. This is important. If I want to, start building my insurance, my income, there are things that I need to take into account. And we can't forget that there's parts, that there's things that kick in at different times.
Correct. Social Security is a big one, and sometimes it makes sense to do earlier or later. That's going to depend on your situation. That's going to drastically change everything about your financial situation. When you get something like property tax, you own the property, but you still kind of have to be paying rent to the government to keep your land. What happens if you don't pay your property taxes?
Yeah, they take your house pretty quick. Folks, you've heard me say this. The home you live in is not an asset. I know my real estate agent friends might disagree with me, but I guess it would depend on what your definition of asset is. My definition of an asset is I took it from Robert Kiyosaki, okay? So it's not, I didn't make this up. And his definition of an asset is simple. It is an asset is a vehicle that feeds you. It makes you money. A liability is an asset that eats from you and takes your money. So if I own a house, and of course we need a place to live, and you have a house and that's your asset and you are retired, it still eats from you by needing a new roof and homeowner's insurance and property taxes, as Logan was saying. But what about if you have another piece of real estate, it's creating a profit, somebody else has to go to work for you every single day. You don't call them on Monday, say, how you feeling today? You doing all right? You got to pay me the first of next month. You don't say that. You say it's due on the 1st, late on the 5th, and your butt is out on the 15th, right? Whatever the rules are and the policy is. But they're going to pay you a profit, hopefully, right? You're going to rent it for more. You take those dollars, so that person goes to work for your property taxes on where you live. So no longer does your efforts have to be completed in order to generate money to pay for a liability. Let somebody else work for a liability. You work for an asset. Too much to get into now, but I really love the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. I think you should consider it. Consider reading it. Right? It changed my life in 1998, something like that. 1998, 99. Big deal. Changed everything about me.
And when it comes to retiring, we often think of the stuff that we're not going to have to pay anymore. You're not going to have to pay to commute. Maybe you're dry cleaning, whatever kind of training, those kinds of things. Not going to have to deal with that anymore. But what does your employer pay for right now? Do they pay your health insurance or some life insurance? Do they pay, you have a company car, company phone? Those kinds of things can sneak up on you if you're not expecting them.
Yeah, how many times have you been in a position where you've walked out and they said, oh, Jimmy, we've had bad news, budget cuts, we're taking the take-home car. Well, maybe you've had a take-home car for 3 years now or 5 years and you sold the other one. So you have a one-car family because you always had the company car to commute. The family car for weekends, company car to commute. And they take that company car away. And you have to think, how am I going to manage so that I can get to a place where at least I'm in a position to buy another car? And then what car do you buy? Caring for family, we're starting to see in our practice more and more of it. I'm starting to see people care for their older siblings. I'm starting to see people have to care for their parents a lot more because the parents have gone through this. If you were born in the late 30s or early 40s, you're starting to see that your parents, who were born 20 years earlier, are in need of care. And they don't want to go to a facility in many cases. They want to stay at home as long as possible. So there's a cost to bring somebody in. And you and your siblings might say, listen, they might as well just live with one of us since we're going over there every day. And as long as they're not too big on some of their independence, let's just make sure mom gets food every day. She's taken care of every day. Well, how are you going to absorb that cost? So retirement is not just about taking care of you. Sometimes there's a hiccup in between, and 4 or 5, 6 years into retirement, you are now caring for somebody else. So there's a process of evaluating where you are in your practice retirement to say, what are the potential hiccups? Evaluate what can go wrong. And those are the times and those are the things that can keep your retirement from going back to work. We've talked about it, untiring, retiring and then untiring, going back to work. It means you go through a process of settling in, you look around, you're 3, 4, 5, 6 years into retirement, and either because of purpose or because of money. That's pretty much the only 2 reasons people will go back to work. They run out of money or they've run out of purpose. If you have a stay-at-home spouse, she has a routine. Usually we'll call it, because it's traditionally a lady, and she has a routine. And when she has her routine, she expects you to be gone in the morning. She's got things to do, and then you return in the evening. But now you're home. Now you're home all day Monday, all day Tuesday. So what do you do? What does she do? Well, a friend of mine retired, and here's what he did. It was kind of funny, actually. He kept saying, "Hey, so what do we want to do?" She said, "Well, what do you mean? I've got to take care of the kids. I got laundry. I've got to do this. I'm meeting friends for lunch." I know, but what do you want to do? So he suddenly became like this. Hey, what are we doing next? Hey, where can we go? Hey, can I have lunch with you and your friends? And she said it got to the point where she had to look back and say, "Oh my gosh, I have become this guy's everything." And he had to figure it out. It was tough because he went through a rejection period of, oh, my wife doesn't want to be around me. And he had to realize that she had a life just like he did at work. And she had a life before he retired. And just because he retired didn't mean she retired. Things still had to be done at home. She still managed the household. She still had friends. Even though he commuted in a very long distance, his friends were still working because he got an early buyout. So there was emotional pressure on the relationship that they had to sit down and work through. Imagine for a minute where suddenly he's home every single day. What do you do next? What do you do next? And that's difficult. It's a lot of pressure for the stay-at-home spouse to actually look and say, gosh, I don't want to be your everything. Right? It might make a great 80s pop song, but it doesn't work. You should never it's so unfair to make anybody in your life everything. Now imagine you're retired. All right, we'll be back in just a minute. We're going to continue. I'm Arif Halaby, Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. We're talking about practicing retirement. How do you plan? How do you prepare to see if it's right for you? Now, for many of you, it may not be. When we come back, we'll touch on legacy, which I think is the ultimate end game here at your place for news, talk, and information. KHTS, your hometown station. I'm Arif Halaby, and that's Logan on Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. We'll be right back.
The best live theater can be found right here in the Santa Clarita Valley. The Canyon Theater Guild has been entertaining audiences for decades with top-quality musicals and plays. Located in Old Town Newhall, the CTG also offers workshops for the young actor in your family. For more information, call the box office at 799-2702 or go to canyontheater.org.
Did you know that nearly 1 in 3 women will experience domestic violence in her lifetime? And in Santa Clarita, our community supports its own domestic violence center with a shelter home, 24-hour crisis hotline, and bilingual counseling programs. If you or someone you know needs help, we're here. The 24-hour crisis hotline number is 259-HELP. For more information, go to dvcsantaclarita.com because no one should tolerate domestic violence. 259-HELP.
When you're looking for a midnight snack, sometimes fast food just doesn't cut it. Formerly Donut Inn, California Bakery and Cafe is now open 24/7, so you'll be able to find fresh donuts, danishes, bagels, all-natural fruit juices, gourmet sandwiches, and much more at any hour. With elaborate cakes for any occasion, including weddings, baptisms, anniversaries, corporate events, or any special event. California Bakery and Cafe in Santa Clarita is open 24 hours to satisfy any craving, anytime. Call us 255-1254.
City of Hope is a leader in cancer research and treatment. And there's a City of Hope location right here in Santa Clarita, eliminating a major barrier in the fight against cancer: distance to quality care. Santa Clarita has the advantages of City of Hope's renowned clinical expertise, compassionate care, and access to clinical trials. Find out more at cityofhope.org/Santa Clarita or call 661-799-1999.
Your hometown station, KHTS.
Thanks for listening to your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.
Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm Arif Halaby, Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour with Logan. We're talking about your family's finances, practicing for retirement. When you get through the process of practicing, to even see if it's right for you. I remember one of the first times I sat with somebody who shared this with me was maybe 15 years ago. And we were working on his retirement stuff. He's probably in his mid-30s or so. And he shared this with me, and I'd never heard it before. He said, Arif, I'm going to be semi-retired my entire life. I thought, well, what does that mean? He says, my goal is to never buy a new car It's to never have a big, large, fancy house. It's to never have a job with a pension. It's to save a little bit of my money. But my goal is to live basically check to check, month to month, so that I can enjoy life. And I can work 3 to 6 months out of the year, and I'm going to be semi-retired my whole life. I'm going to always rent a room. I'm going to always drive an old car. I probably will get married. He had a long-term girlfriend at the time. But I don't want to get this 9-to-5 job, live in a cubicle and drive in the traffic for 2 hours every day. That's not his thing. So he said, I'm going to be semi-retired my whole life. Now, that wasn't a concept that I understood at the time. I was like, what does that mean? So when he shared all these things with me, it taught me a few things. It taught me that his purpose in life was not about work. It was almost as if he was more of the European mindset, which is they work so that they can play, right? Not so that they could play so that they can work, which is Americans, right? Our job is to work, take our 2-week vacation, and not. Now, to try to compare European and the United States culture, I get it. The grass is always greener. There are many of you out there that are elitists. I've been all over Europe, I don't know, 20 countries or something. When the European Union first started, I chuckled. In fact, I thought it would never last, and I still think it's not going to last. You're starting to see it crack anyway. Because you can't tell me that somebody who lives in Belgium or Germany have anything in common with a guy who lives in Greece or Italy. Now, you might say, well, they're part of the European continent. Look, you could walk from here to there. Look, do you understand? They have different values. They have different language. They have different currencies at the time, Deutschmark and Lira. They have different economic pressures. They have different family structures, and on and on and on. So you can say that the European Union, we're European. What a joke. It means nothing. And so when you guys try to take the American culture of work ethic, of structure, of family values, of all of those things, and you try to squish them into a European, I'm going to work 3 months, 6 months, 8 months out of the year and take the rest of the time off. Good luck with that. It might work for some some cultures, but I don't think it works for the United States. I think if you have Northern Europe, right, the cultures that have a really big work ethic, and you have Southern, well, they called them the pigs, right? Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain. What's the one thing in common? It's called the Mediterranean. Oh my gosh, relax. Have you been there? Have you been there in the summer? It's hot and humid and it's comfortable, and you take a sleeping, it's called siesta in the afternoon, and you just relax, and you have a dinner at around 10 o'clock at night. It's a totally different world. You can live that lifestyle, but you don't get the goodies because we're not a socialized country. You don't have the fancy cars or the houses or whatever it is that matters to you. You can have one or the other. And this particular client actually shared with me, he said, hey, Arif, I want that lifestyle. I said, great. He rents a room. You're going to bring children into this world. What an example. Because legacy is the final nail as you build that house, that financial house for you. Because legacy is all about where you're going and where your memory goes after you pass.
And is your legacy going to be something you want it to be? Is it going to be on purpose? As we mentioned earlier, with a lot of people are taking care of their parents or grandparents, in-laws, are you going to be in that position someday? And are you going to be helpless? Or are you going to be able to provide some element of it? Or is you're going to have your children sacrificing for you without any...
We have seen this where people will come into the office and they'll sit down, and when they love their mom, they love their dad, usually it's the mom, right, because women live longer, and they'll sit there and they'll talk about their mom and they'll talk about the financial burden. They love her, they won't change anything. But do you understand the memories and the words they say from a legacy standpoint is that she's a burden financially, and they're not going to say that they would ever do anything different because it's their mom. But you know what happens when the door's closed and spouses speak to each other, right? They say things like, gosh, I wish mom would have prepared better than this. This is going to affect our retirement. As long as she's alive, we have to pay for this. Or her living with us means we don't get to enjoy our retirement because we can't go very far for very long. Right? You know that. Now, don't put yourself in a position for whatever reason, if that's the situation you found your mom in, well, God bless the ability and the honor to take care of them, because I believe it's an honor. I think it's a privilege to be able to take care of your parents. I understand that. But you have a choice now. See, you can't say you never heard of this, and now you did. Surprise! You have to prepare. You have to take it, whether it's life insurance to replace the money that they've spent on you, whether it is long-term care insurance. You've talked about that, Logan.
Long-term care is definitely something that people are surprised on sometimes. Nursing homes are not inexpensive.
Well, we've talked about that one, the insurance product that actually has both of those pieces in there.
Yes, there's certain life insurance that has a long-term care component that kicks in if you have a long-term injury, if it's something that's a chronic illness sometimes, or if it's, you've got a small amount of time to live, they can let you take it out and use it to cover expenses.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, and guys, you need to remember this. There are life insurance policies out there that are hybrid, if you will, for lack of a better term, where they can do both long-term care, which means while you're alive, you can pull money out for chronic illness, critical illness, help cover the costs, and a death benefit, which means when you pass away, that can go to your beneficiaries. What does that look like when you're alive, if you will, and you need to access it? Very simply, your children, or you, if it's for you, can still have a life, because there are funds there, financially speaking, to bring in a caregiver, so you can go for your weekend anniversary trip, so you can go for a summer vacation with the kids and make sure mom is taken care of, so that you can financially add on to the house or build that extra downstairs bathroom without taking from your retirement, meaning you can't retire at age 60, it has to be 65, or 65 now to 70, right? Be responsible. Now, there are some of you that have been in a place where you say, I've taken care of everybody else in the world, and financially, this is where I am. No problem, if that's the way it is. When my parents brought people over from Lebanon in 1976, they sold a rental property. They took their savings out. It impacted our family's financial budget. I would bet to say that, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years it took for us to financially as a family to recover, maybe more. Well, thankfully today, right, my mom is in her early 70s. She still gets to have a chance to retire, because maybe not at age 60, because it affected them financially 10, 12 years ago, right? But they were still able to do what they needed to do to save money, put it aside. Would she trade any of that off? Never. Never would she be in a place, and my dad, to trade off, well, I'm going to work 10 years longer to leave 43 members of our family in the middle of a Civil war zone. They wouldn't. But would it have been nice if they would have been wealthier families from, of course, but they weren't. They're folks from the village,
And even if they had been wealthier, they were coming over with suitcases. There was not much that they had aside from that one suitcase, just due to what was going on.
Yeah, you could see that I guess the time, the statute of limitations have passed, but consider this, a lot of them turned their wealth into gold, and they brought gold and they sewed it into their clothing, and they put it on their wrist and wore it as necklaces and covered it up, just so they could have some sort of parachute, financially speaking, and when they left. You might be in that position, and you know what? That's where you are. But if you have a chance to financially prepare from a legacy standpoint, and your unintended legacy is one of just kind of a cringing when they think of you, and your kids are going to just go, well, I guess, it's where we are. We're going to take care of mom. Do something about it. Plan, save, prepare. See if it's right for you. Maybe retirement isn't. Some people still want to work in their 70s. There's nothing wrong with that. You can always go to hometownstation.com, of course, or go to TFS, stands for Total Financial Solutions, tfswealth.com, or give us a call at 800-990-7344. Thanks for listening. I'm Arif Halaby.
KHTS, Canyon Country, Santa